Hello and welcome. Today we've got Joseph Patterson, the UIC president in Jamaica. And we are going to be discussing his arrest that happened when he was protesting peacefully. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to our Telegram channels and to nicholasveniamin.com for my free email updates. And if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, I will leave the link below in the description for the full interview, unless, of course, myself and Joseph can use our words wisely to avoid being censored, on YouTube. If that's okay, Joe?
That's fine with me, yes. No problem at all.
Thank you so much for joining me, Joseph. How are you and what have you been up to? And if you then could go into what's been happening with you and the protest.
Sure. So I'm doing fine today. I wasn't so fine about a little bit over a week ago. I'm the president for a very small political party in Jamaica, which is the third registered party. We're called the UIC, which stands for United Independence Congress, because we're really a union of independent thinkers. So people from all spectrums that we bring together, trying to unite around some common values. And the primary value of which is protecting individual rights, making sure that every citizen of this country has the right to their life, to their liberty, and to their property, free from government coercion and overreach. And so, as you know, we're in a pandemic right now where governments around the world are moving aggressively to mandate vaccinations on their citizens. They've also mandated lockdowns, taken away their freedom of speech, freedom of movement, and freedom of choice gradually. The UIC is opposed to that, and so we're working very hard to prevent that from becoming the norm here in Jamaica. So about August 6th, we started to do what we call Walks for Liberty. And a Walk for Liberty is where we invite Jamaicans to come out and walk peacefully with placards and to encourage their fellow citizens to stand up for their individual rights, for their human rights. And so we've been doing that now for about 7-8 weeks. Now, on September 22nd, we had a really big rally. We call it a march on Gordon House. Gordon House is the parliament here in Jamaica. So we had a march from downtown Kingston all the way up to the Parliament building, which is called Gordon House. And there, the police did everything. They brought out the full arsenal of the police, blocking us at every turn. So the road that we went, they blocked us. We have to go to another road, and they blocked us again. Went to another road. Didn't understand why, because nothing is wrong with walking from one point of the country to another. But obviously, some people in very high places were not happy with us having such a walk, such a march. And so the police warned us that it was illegal to do so. They told us that we needed a permit to have a walk or a march. And they also told us that even if we applied for a permit, they would not have given us one because we're in the middle of a pandemic and they're not issuing any permits for any protests. So we walked, and after many stops by the police at different points where they harassed some of us, pepper sprayed some of us. I got pepper sprayed at least once in one of the roads, and we, backed off and we went to another area. Each time the police was very aggressive. They kept pushing at us, kept doing everything to agitate, to get us into a bit of a frenzy. And we kept backing off and trying another route to get to the Parliament building, backing off and going. Eventually we stopped. We went back to where we started. And I went on a platform and I was speaking to the people. And then the police marched upon the platform, and the guy that was in charge began to push me in my chest twice. And then 2 other men grabbed me under my arms, and then they took me away in a police vehicle, having taken away 3 other young persons, a young lady and 2 young men who were doing nothing more than walking peacefully. And they harassed them really hard, and they took us backstage, back to the police central command, and held us without water or food. We went for more than 12, 13 hours without food or anything until somebody from the outside, my wife, got us some food, which they reluctantly allowed in. They stripped us in a very public area of the precinct, searched us, humiliated us, treated us really with disdain. They mocked us, laughed at us. This was the police that's supposed to be protecting and serving the citizens. And then they threw us in a cell, very dirty. They had previously let out some other prisoners, apparently, Everything was there, all the dirty rags and bottles and cans and pans. And it's just a concrete floor, raised beds, concrete beds, no linen, no nothing. Completely horrific. It's like a garbage container. They stuffed us in a garbage container. And so you had four of us in this garbage container locked away, very hot, very dark, roaches all over the place, very smelly. And that was our condition until I was released on bail, thanks to my wife and another family member and our lawyer pressing. They wanted to keep me there for 2 weeks without bail as a way of punishing. They were really looking forward to punishing me for simply standing up and speaking out for freedom and for saying that the government needed to not apply these measures, which are really affecting us, the lockdown measures. Jamaica is a very poor country, Nicholas, very, very poor. So locking down people who live hand to mouth, who go out and pretty much forage for food every day is inhumane, to say the least. So these people are struggling. They're destroying small micro businesses, destroying jobs. Crime rate is going through the roof, or family structure is breaking down very fast. Domestic violence is through the roof. Or teenagers are out of school for nearly 2 years. All children are out of school for nearly 2 years. Education decline is alarming. You see the kids on the streets just roaming around, unprotected, uncared for. Child pregnancy is through the roof. We had more than 300 child pregnancies over the last 14 months alone. And we're going to learn more later on as we get to the next year and so on. So it's really horrific what the government has done. I can't begin to explain to you how painful it has been for the Jamaican people. And the government seems very committed to being a glorified salesman. Its primary purpose is to sell one pharmaceutical solution, one primary solution, which is this so-called vaccination. That's their primary target. You need to take this. We're gonna make sure you suffer until you take this. That's the Prime Minister's approach. I'll not let up until you all decide to take this. And then they use the employers. And many employers are forcing employees. First, they tried bribes. They gave them pizzas. They gave them food stamps. They gave them $10,000 to take this substance, rather than providing education, early treatment methodologies. So people, if they got this virus or got sick, they were just left to die. So only when we have this vaccine will you have, I said vaccine, I'm sorry, this so-called vaccine, only then will you have any hope, because that's what we, the government, are putting down as the only hope, nothing else. We will have no other forms of treatment whatsoever. We will not encourage you, will not teach you, will not educate you about anything else except this product. And the Prime Minister was so insistent on simply copying whatever first world countries were doing. So if Canada or the UK or the US did this, he just simply applied it to Jamaica. Totally different country. Most people here are not on electronic banking, for example. They don't get their paychecks going into their account, nicely, and then they can just go and shop online. Most people here do not do online shopping. So this has been a really painful, torturous experience for Jamaicans, because the Prime Minister is completely out of touch with the realities on the ground here. He's very focused on just carrying out whatever dictates his foreign masters gave him, to the detriment of Jamaicans right around the country.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for sharing that. It's an absolute disgrace, because it never even crossed my mind, actually, that some countries are not very used to the online shopping mentality, whereas here in the UK and the States and Australia, and probably many other countries more, are used to that type of thing. So it's a lot easier for us. So you're saying that right now in Jamaica, they've mandated, we'll call it the liquid, the thing that we put in our arms, we'll call it the liquid. So you're saying that they've made that compulsory. You will not be assisted in any way for medical treatment unless you've had this liquid taken. And you're saying that the lockdowns have been mandated. What else have been mandated?
So basically, the government has not yet publicly fully mandated the taking of that biological liquid into your body. What they have done instead is to mandate lockdowns For example, they'll take away 3 days out of the week and say you can't do any business, you can't do anything, you need to stay home. Then they give you 2.5 days to do everything else, which means everybody, once they're released from their prisons, they have to run out in droves. And the very same thing they tell us not to do, which is to not to get in close proximity and not to crowd in. They cause these massive crowds on a number of areas, grocery shopping, banking, because many people have to go to the bank to take money out. They don't have online banking. They don't know how to use online banking. It's not a part of their normal way. They're beginning to learn now because they're forced to. But before, it was really very difficult, even today. So you have these long lineup at the banks. Many Jamaicans also rely on remittances. Remittances, of course, is where Jamaicans overseas. We have more Jamaicans living overseas than here at home. About 3 million of us here in Jamaica and 4 million overseas. So those overseas are sending money to help their poor parents, their children that they left behind, the aunts, the uncles, the nieces, the nephews, and they have to run to the Western Unions to get this money out because they only have 2.5 days of business to operate in. So they have to rush and be in these tight lineups. It's hot because the sun here is very hot, and they're in these long lines. They're frustrated. They're hungry. They're mentally going insane because of all the lockdowns. And many Jamaicans live. You have 8 people living in what could be constituted as one room, right? So it's a very, very, very bad situation. And so the government has people rushing, stocking up in taxes, trying to get things done in order for the lockdowns. The curfews are going to start very soon, and they're going to be locked down from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then they get Wednesday, Thursday, then half day on Friday, and it's early lockdown on Saturdays. It's really miserable here. So the mandate of this liquid is more indirect. And then what they did was to co-opt the employers now to say, you either take this, in Jamaica we call it the juk. You either take the juk or you must submit every 72 hours a new PCR test to say that you are negative. Okay? And if you, of course, the test is more than your salary for the average person. When you add up the cost of the test, it's more than you're going to be earning for the week, or at least a significant portion of it, which means you cannot do it. So really, you're losing your job. That's what they're telling you. And so you have all these poor citizens who have no other options. It's very hard to get a job here. The economy is miserable. It has been failing for years and years, not just now. It has never been, for the last 30, 40, 50 years, the economy has not grown significantly because of corruption. We have the two parties that run this country are extremely corrupt. A large portion of our budget every year goes towards covering the cost of corruption. Okay? So our school system is horrible. It fails 70% of our students. Our healthcare system is horrible. If most citizens are afraid to go to the hospital because of how scary it is to go there. The rich, of course, goes to the most expensive ones. We have expensive hospitals here for those who can afford it. But the vast majority, the 90% of the country cannot afford it. So they go to the low quality hospitals or clinics, and they're afraid to do so because it is so horrendous. The school system is failing. So most of our students leave school without the skills necessary. The economy is failing every year. More and more businesses collapse and private outsiders come in and buy up our assets, and the government sells it out for cheap in order for them to patch holes in their budgets. We continue to destroy our natural resources with mining. So it's really a very bad mix of bad governance, poor leadership, poor economic management, and all-round disregard for the citizen. And then we have a police force, not a police service, a police force where the police sees the citizens in the same way that a master sees a slave, which is just unbelievable. The level of disrespect and disregard for human rights, it's unbelievable that we're in the 21st century and seeing the kind of governance, the kind of policing, and the kind of mismanagement that we have in this country today.
Absolutely. This is the type of behavior that we're seeing worldwide in many different countries. They want to turn, to a socialist or communist type of country, which is disgusting. When the people stand up or they're peacefully protesting, that's the opportunity for the government to listen to what the people want, because they ultimately work for the people, not the other way around. That's why we elect them. It's absolutely a disgrace. And then we have the liquid things that we take in our arms, and they tell us that we can still transmit it, whatever that we're transmitting. But, they have more freedom. So it doesn't really make sense. It's more of a control mechanism, obviously. Now, what has been the consciousness shift in Jamaica from now to last year? Are you finding that more and more people are waking up to the inconsistencies?
Absolutely. Currently, 70% of Jamaicans are against this liquid. 70% of the country is opposed to it. And they're opposed to it because, one, they know they cannot trust the government. The government is very untrustworthy. And they also know that the narrative around this liquid does not make sense. It doesn't make sense that you're promised that if you were to take this substance into your body, everything would go back to normal. But the more they look at the data coming out, even of countries that have taken this up 60, 80, 70%, they're not getting any better. Israel is not getting any better. Singapore is not getting any better. All the countries, even Jamaica, prior to us admitting the liquid into our country, we had a very low rate of anybody contracting the so-called virus. The only problem we had was the government. The people were not suffering tremendously from any virus, any sicknesses. Our hospitals were not being overrun. The moment we start to introduce this liquid into the society is the moment we saw rates going up, skyrocketing. Now we're hearing the beds are being overtaken, as if we had a good system. And every Jamaican know that we did not have enough beds for normal sicknesses in the first place. So to tell us now that we don't have enough beds because of this is really fallacious. The people here knows that the government is lying to them. They know that the government cannot be trusted. And so because of that, there's what they call hesitancy. It's not hesitancy. The people know they cannot trust the government, and the narrative around this liquid is such that there's no basis for us to want to take that into our system. What the UIC has been saying is we're not pro this liquid and we're not anti this liquid. What we are is pro-choice. Give us the information. Give us objective information. Objective information. Be transparent. Be inclusive, bring other players, bring the other political party around the table. Let us see the data that you're seeing and be able to verify this. And then let us educate the people on what we know and allow them to make the choice. You cannot violate a person's bodily autonomy. That's your last boundary, your last defense, to have control of your person, to be able to say what goes into my body. That must be my choice. It cannot be the choice of a government. And the moment we go down the route where a government gets to decide what goes into our bodies, that is the last straw. That is the end of a free society as we know it. And we must do everything we can to stop that from happening.
Absolutely. Our freedom, when we make free will is given to us by God. And we're able to create whatever we want consciously, whatever we want on a galactic level. So who is the government to take it away from us? Because they are ultimately playing God.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, there's been a video going around circulating. I saw one on Telegram of you being arrested. Do you have that video at hand? Because if so, I can show that to the public.
No, I'm sure it's there, but there's so many of them. Please forgive me. There are many of them. I didn't, if I had known, I'd really pull it out for you today, but no, I don't. But basically, the real sad part about that experience is that Jamaica is supposed to be a free and democratic country. And what they're telling us is that you cannot protest against the government without permission from the government. You cannot question the government without permission. In fact, this particular prime minister has a history of trying to skirt the laws. When he just got elected, one of the first things he did was to have every senator that he appointed, because the system allows him to appoint the senators, which is ridiculous in the first instance. every senator that he appointed, the 13 of them of the 21, had to sign a resignation letter, an undated resignation letter. So in other words, if they were ever to disagree with him on anything, he would just date that resignation letter and remove them from office. This is the kind of prime minister that we have in the country. He has a history of trying to skirt the law. He did the very same thing with the Chief Justice. Instead of appointing a Chief Justice according to the rules that currently exist in our Constitution, he wanted to make him a temporary Chief Justice so that he would be able to revoke that Chief Justice's appointment if the Chief Justice would not do what he wanted. This is the kind of prime minister that we have. It's the same prime minister who also, while in office, sought to pass what is called NIDS, a national ID system that would allow him tremendous power over our biological data to be able to use and manipulate that information for his benefit. He was struck down by the courts. He was opposed, and the courts found his actions unconstitutional, and so he had to back off. He's now coming at it from a different angle. So this is the kind of person we have leading our country. He's a perfect dictator in the making, and my party and the people of Jamaica are now very committed to removing him from office and changing the system totally from what it is, the one that's truly a republic that protects the rights and freedoms of every individual citizen from its government.
Now, just before we get into that and the next steps that you're going to take, would you like to compare how close Jamaica is getting in comparison to China, which we know China is a communist country? Would you want to give us the comparisons of the two? And if this continues, how quick could Jamaica be China?
Well, Jamaica is already very indebted to China. China now has a foothold in every area of our country. In fact, most of our thriving businesses are now owned by Chinese in Jamaica. More and more, the Jamaican citizens are becoming mere tenants in their own country, thanks to the leadership of 77 years of two major parties that have consistently sold out the country to foreigners. And so here in Jamaica, the Chinese, they build our roads, they build our buildings. They are the advisors to our government. The government, both parties send people to China to be trained by the Chinese to come back and implement Chinese ideologies in Jamaica. So we're very, very close to China. And the government's borrowing and dependence on China has been growing. Now, of course, our behavior is also very much like the Chinese government in terms of trying to take away the citizens' right, trying to create a surveillance police state so that they can actually manage, manipulate, and dictate to the citizens. So it's only a short distance away from becoming a mere outpost of China. And by the way, I'm not saying this lightly because it's the same thing we have done with the US. Prior to China coming, we did the same. First, it was Spain. Spain used to control Jamaica as a colony. Then it was the UK that controlled Jamaica as a colony. Then eventually it became the US, with the UK still as a minority partner in the process. We still have the Queen of England as our head of state, which is ridiculous. So our whole country has just failed to become a truly independent nation, which understands the rule of law and understands the need to protect the rights of citizens. To date, it seems as if a small minority, elite in this country, has all the rights, and the vast majority of Jamaicans have no rights at all, except to turn up for work when they're told and to take whatever punishment or processes the employer or the government says that they should. The UIC is very determined to stop that. And so we have a really big plan to change the constitution, get rid of the monarchy, make Jamaica a true republic, and really put checks and balance in place so we have good governance, less corruption, and a country that works for the majority of the people.
Can we speak more about how you are going to do that? What are the steps? What are the plans? Who's working alongside with you? And how are you going to involve the general public to help you?
Well, basically, the first step was for us to form an organization such as this. The UIC was first a movement with the primary objective of promoting individual rights, life, liberty, and property for every citizen. And secondarily, we then voted, our membership voted for us to become a political party to challenge the omnipotent state and to reverse what has been going on for the last 77 years here. And so we became a political party. We now have an expansive membership base across the country. We have a board called the NEC, National Executive Council, consisting of 11 individuals, including myself as president, the chairman, 3 vice presidents, a general secretary, a treasury secretary, and some what you call now subject matter experts in different areas on that committee. Then we have 14 parish managers, 63 member of parliament candidates, 228 councillor candidates, and 6,320 PD or polling division supervisors. And altogether, our membership will be, when we're finished, about 74,000 that will work to galvanize the entire country. We expect to have early elections sometime next year. We expect that. Of course, that's not the plan of the government. That's our plans, because we're not going to continue. We're not going to allow the government to continue to do what it's doing. So we're pressuring them. We're pushing. So we're going to have more protests across the country. We're going to have more civil disobedience across the country. We're going to press for a dissolution of parliament and for a referendum election on the government, at the end of which we will form the government. We will change the constitution to a non-partisan constitutional republic. We will create a Jamaica that is actually true and free and independent of the monarchy. And we will put in place a grassroots economy, which is built on the principles of free markets that protects the rights of the small man, the small businesses, and the individuals, so that they too can effectively compete even with the biggest of companies and succeed. So we have a complete plan of action that we're rolling out each and every day. And I look forward to soon having a new Jamaica created.
Well, I think you're doing a fantastic job, Joseph. I wanted to also ask you, which measures are you looking to take to prevent police arresting peaceful protesters?
Well, in the future, that will be against the law. I mean, protest must be free. You must be able to protest as long as it's nonviolent and you're not destroying people's properties and you're not hurting anyone. Protest is a very important part of any democracy. Any freedom, any free country must have the freedom to protest without any form of victimization from the government, from your employer, or from the police. And so the UIC's constitution will ensure that the freedom to speak, the freedom to move, the freedom to associate, the freedom to choose, the freedom to protest are fully protected by law and can never, ever again be challenged by the government.
Well, Joseph Patterson, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish?
Well, I thank all your viewers very much. I encourage you to check out our website. It's uicjamaica.com. We currently have what we call a legal defense fund. We're raising money to help those who have been arrested by the police or those who have been charged. We had a 17-year-old who was charged $200,000 for not wearing a mask. It's a $1 million, it's a maximum $1 million fine for not abiding by the basic rules that they've put in place to prevent us from moving around freely or communicating freely. And so we've set up a fund to help those of us who are currently going to court. I'll be in court on October 7th and October 13th. We intend to challenge them vigorously. We have a very good lawyer. We're going to challenge the government on the constitutionality of their actions. And worse than that, we're going to challenge them on the basis of fundamental human rights that they're violating from a national and international level. And it is our intentions to beat the government on these because we know they're wrong. And we're going to defend every Jamaican that has been wrongly accused or wrongly fined by the government. So we have this GoFundMe going now. You can look it up or go on our website, uicjamaica.com. And if you will, everyone, please donate and help us to fight this because we can't do it alone. But if we work together, we can overcome tyranny in all its forms.
Absolutely. Joseph, I will leave the link below so that people can donate and they can get involved and even, contact you if they need, if they can help or anything like that. And also you are very welcome to come back and keep us updated with how you're getting along. And I just want to say thank you very much and we'll speak soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And all the best to you and your viewers as well.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too.